Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far. So today I'm going to be showing you my foundations drawer. This is the drawer where I keep the majority of my foundations. As I previously mentioned in my top drawer video, which is where I keep my day-to-day, my favorite products, I need these products as close as they can be. I keep a selection of 5-ish foundations. Obviously in that video, if you watched it, you will see there's a few extra in there, what with foundation Geddon having just come to an end, hopefully anyway. So there's currently a few extra in there at the moment, but outside of those foundations, which are my go-to, most used currently on a day-to-day basis, I have a whole other separate drawer for the rest of my foundations. So today I'm going to be taking you through them. I'm going to be doing a mini review of every foundation in there, telling you how I feel about it. And so let's get into that drawer, shall we? Okay, so before we dive into my main foundation drawer, I just wanted to kind of retouch on this, this is my top drawer that I did my whole video on, which is all my kind of day-to-day go-to favorite products. So in here is everything I use apart from palettes on like a day-to-day basis. So in here are my like current favorite go-to reach for the most foundations. As I said in my top drawer video, this is kind of fuller than it usually is just because of the amount of foundations that have come out recently, and also as you can see I've doubled up on the Anastasia because I'm between my summer and winter skin tone at the moment, so I can use all of these other shades on their own, but these ones I have my real like darkest summer skin here and my real lightest winter skin in these shades, so at the moment I'm mixing these two together, so that's why I have these two. So I don't really need to go into a huge amount of detail about any of these foundations because they are all the most recently reviewed ones that I've talked about a lot. You guys know how I feel about these ones. The Shiseido is my current absolute favourite. I then have the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless, which is very much my favourite kind of full coverage, more matte, really bulletproof go-to option. The Anastasia, which you guys know I love it. I'm not sure anymore that I love that more than the Shiseido. I think the Shiseido is slightly more flattering on my lines and just a hair less dewy, which for me is a good thing. This is the Pat McGrath, which I love for kind of no makeup days. With the Fenty, I'm kind of undecided whether I prefer it to the Shiseido or not, and whether I prefer it to the Anastasia or not. I kind of go back and forth between the Anastasia, the Fenty and the Shiseido. And then we have my kind of tried and true Rodial. You can see the word has like fully disappeared off of here because that's how much I've loved this foundation. And again, this one I'm still currently kind of deciding where it sits among these new favourites. I think because purely on shade, which we know the Rodial shade range is problematic, I think because of that, this one has kind of fallen out of favour slightly. I still love it whenever I wear it, but I have got better shades for me without mixing in the Fenty, the Anastasia and the Shiseido and I mean all of these to be honest, apart from maybe the Charlotte Tilbury, which is also a tricky shade for me shade wise. But yeah, I will say that just for the shade, I like the Rodial as much as all of these foundations, but the shade is a problem. So at the moment I'm still figuring out how I feel about this one in comparison to these. So now we come to the other side of my vanity, and here is my secondary foundation drawer. Pretty good, right? So I will start off by saying there's no kind of rhyme or reason to like the order or like how I've organized this other than like the best way it kind of fits in the drawer, I guess. You can see that there are lots of kind of duplicates of foundation. If there is a duplicate of a foundation in here, i.e. I have it in more than one shade, that kind of already tells you how I feel about the foundation. I love it enough to have bought it in multiple shades. So as we already know, I have a shade of the Rodial in my go-to drawer, and there are 3 more. So 1, that tells you how much I struggle with the shades, and 2, it tells you how much I love it. So I have 3 more shades in here, 2 or 20, depending on whether you're on the website or on the bottle, is my kind of go-to fair as can be shade. In here I also have 6, which is my darkest summer shade, and that is 4. At the moment I'm using 5 or 50. This Fenty foundation, the original Fenty foundation, I don't use it really ever anymore. It is too matte for me. As far as a matte foundation, I do like it. But you guys know that I don't love matte finish on myself, so I really don't use that often. Next we have the Armani Luminous Silk Foundation, absolute classic, and I put this on my Project Pan this year and it is nearly fully gone. Like, you can't really see through the bottle, but there is a minimal amount of this left. I do like this foundation. I get asked up a lot about whether I still love this. This is kind of my go-to for like a night out. I absolutely love it, like for event, evening, night out type makeup, date night makeup. But for the daytime, it kind of is a hair short of the coverage I want. It doesn't wear as well, it's not as bulletproof as some of my other favourites. So for me, it doesn't really work for like an everyday foundation, but for like dinner out, an evening out, a night out, an event, it is like my go-to. An absolute go-to favourite for the whole of 2019, the Laura Mercier Flawless Lumiere. You can see I have it in 2 shades. My summer is Suntan, my winter is Tawny. At the moment, I'd be mixing these 2. I think I don't prefer this foundation over the Shiseido and over the Anastasia and possibly the Fenty. I'm still, again, like the Rodial, still figuring this one out because while I was playing around with the new foundations, I didn't get to use this one and I didn't get to use the Rodial either for a very long time because I was reviewing so many new foundations all the time. So I've kind of forgotten how I feel about them, how I like them, what they look like on me. So I'm still kind of dipping back into these again, and I do still love them, but I kind of think that the Shiseido might be slightly more flattering on like texture and lines than this one, but I'm still figuring that out. Next in here is the Marc Jacobs Shameless, which I hate. I initially loved this in my initial review. It's kind of similar. That first time I used it, it reminds me of like this one or the Shiseido. It looked very skin-like, glowy, healthy, smooth. And then after that, I've never managed to really get it to work for me since. I hate it. I'm probably going to bin it after this video. I don't recommend it. I think I'm the only person who's ever worn it and enjoyed it. that was only one time. So yeah, it seems to be extremely problematic, extremely sensitive to what primer you use, what skincare you use, what application method you use. It's just too stressful. I can't, it's not for me. So now on to the next row, we have the Born This Way foundation. I like a lot of things about this foundation. This is the Too Faced foundation. I like a lot of things about it. What I don't like about it is how it looks in my lines, like the lines on my top lip, my forehead, my smile lines. It definitely soaks in there and creases in lines on me anyway. Everything else about it I love, but for that reason it's not like gonna make it into my top 5 because I now have multiple foundations, the ones that you saw in my top drawer, that don't do that and that do everything that this does. That's a bonus. I think if you're younger than me, you don't have as many lines as me, then you will love this one. On me, it gives a very luminous, beautifully sort of luminous matte finish. It does get glowier throughout the day. It is beautiful full coverage, a really lovely natural finish, wears very well on me, but yeah, the one drawback is the lines and wrinkles and texture that it isn't super flattering on, and I do have now foundations that do all of the pros of this foundation but don't do that con. So yeah, for me it's not going to be like in my top 5, but if you are younger than me, you don't have lines or texture, then it is a lovely foundation. The Guerlain Lingerie de Peau, when I first got into makeup, when I first started my YouTube channel, I thought this was beautiful, a really lovely foundation. Now I've definitely found lots that I prefer to it. The shade range with Guerlain is always a problem for me. It just very warm or very pink and nothing in between, so it doesn't really shade wise ever work for me, their foundations. But yeah, this one, I feel like I have foundations that do everything that this one does, but better, you know, they counter my redness better, they cover better, they wear better, they have nicer finishes. It's just, for me, it's an average foundation. Next up, the Nars Natural Radiant. Again, a bit like the Laura Mercier, a bit like the Rodial. I haven't had much of a chance to wear this one recently because of all the new ones that came out. But I do think that these are going to kind of fall off of the absolute favourite top drawer, my go-to top drawer list, just because it was always kind of in my top 5 but never 1, 2, 3, if you know what I mean. And now obviously so many more have come out, it's kind of been bumped down a few spots, but I do love it. It has great shades. I have great shades in Nars, summer and winter. Their tones are fantastic. It gives great coverage. I don't find it as long wearing as some of my other favourites, and I don't find it as bulletproof. And I don't love the finish as much, but it is a lovely foundation and it's definitely up there. Like, it would still be in my top 10, I'm just not sure if it's in my top 5 anymore. Same with the Tinted Doll. Usually I have my summer and winter shade, but I actually went through a full bottle of this last year in my winter shade, which is now fully gone. So this is my summer shade, and yeah, I love this foundation. Again, it's been recently moved out of my top drawer to make room for the Shiseido. And again, I'm just not sure. I need to go back to it, but it's no longer in my top 5. I feel like probably the Charlotte Tilbury has replaced this one. Just because it's a bit smoother on me. I use less of it to get, you know, probably a bit more coverage than this one offers. It's kind of longer wearing. As good a wear as this one gives me, the Charlotte Tilbury is like wears for my whole life. So yeah, I think this one has kind of just been slightly gazumped, but I will always have a bottle of this in my collection because it is just an absolute staple for me. So this is the Benefit Hello Happy Flawless Refreshing, which I have in the mini size because I was kind of on the fence after using up my sample. So I bought the mini to see how I feel about it. Again, you know, it's Benefit, so it has a small shade range, which can be problematic for me. But because this is kind of more of a light medium coverage, it's not as much an issue as a full coverage, you know, slightly off shade would be. I like this foundation. I don't love it as much as the others, like I've mentioned in my top drawer. It does that glowy, luminous, healthy, natural thing really well, but I guess the foundations that are my ultimate favourite, they do those things a hair better. But then this one is like a little bit more affordable as well, so if your budget is a little bit more, like you want to spend, you know, in the £20 rather than in the 30 or 40, then definitely this is a really nice foundation. I do really like it. I just don't love it and can't live without it. I probably won't repurchase this, you know, once this little mini is gone. Now you saw my summer shade of the Charlotte Tilbury in my drawer, which is 9W. This is 7.5N, which will be my winter shade. I've already spoken about this one. I really love this foundation. It's slightly more matte than I generally love my foundations, but if I've got a really long, hard, heavy day of, you know, work and children and all of that, everything else, I really trust this foundation. It is bulletproof on me. It's got a beautiful natural matte. It looks very healthy, very flattering, and the coverage is insane with one pump. So yeah, this has definitely become my go-to when I want a full coverage, bulletproof, like life-proof foundation for whatever is going to happen in my day. Maybe it's raining, maybe I'm going to be out and about running around. This is like, that's what I reach for. Definitely become a real favourite. The Huda Beauty, a bit like the Fenty, I just don't use it anymore. I guess, again, it kind of falls into the category with the Charlotte Tilbury of, you know, if I need a bulletproof matte, full coverage, nothing is coming off my face, I'm going to reach for this over this. And obviously this one doesn't have that really overwhelming fragrance that the Huda does. You guys know me, I don't have sensitive skin. I'm very bulletproof when it comes to my skin, so it doesn't break me out, but I do know that that amount of fragrance isn't going to be doing my skin any favours. So yeah, I generally don't reach for it as much as I like it and I like how it looks on my skin. I do prefer the Charlotte Tilbury for like the purpose that this serves. Next, this is Dior Star. I'm not going to talk too much about this one because it's actually been discontinued. It was a beautiful foundation. I know lots of people are upset about this one being discontinued because it was their holy grail. I'm not really. It was okay, but I had already kind of replaced it with like the Rodial, which is quite similar to the Dior Star, so but I definitely prefer the Rodial to that one, so I'm not gutted that it's, you know, it's gone forever. It was nice while it lasted, but yeah, I do have others that I prefer. I prefer the Tainted Doll to Star, and I definitely prefer the Rodial to the Star, and those are similar, in a similar bracket to this one for me, so that was, you know, gone but not forgotten. And now at the back of my drawer I have my Kevyn Aucoin foundation balm. Now I really like this. I think I'm pretty much alone in that. Lots of people really didn't get along well with this one, but I do. I really like it. I think it's a beautiful matte foundation, full coverage foundation. Whenever I've been going, traveling, staying with my mum and dad, this is the one I take because it is like a solid balm. It's not going to leak. It doesn't take up much space. I really like using it. I think it's extremely flawless on the skin. It gives a very flawless, full beat, full glam matte finish. It's very long wearing on me, very smooth, very flattering, but generally, you know, that is not like the day-to-day, the regular makeup look I go for. I like a more natural, a more sort of medium, a more luminous finish than this one gives, which is why it's in here and not in my top drawer, but I do definitely have a place for this one in my heart. I think it's beautiful. The one thing I will say is if you bought this and you are one of the people who hate it, can't understand it, think it's terrible, disgusting, all of the above that I've heard people say about this foundation, which baffles me. It is a very love-hate foundation. People either think it's the best foundation they've ever used or the worst, and it seems to not like dry skin types. So be warned, if you have a dry skin type, it's likely to not work for you. Now this comes with this brush, and the one tip I will say that if you have this foundation, so you've already invested your money in it and you'd like to get some use out of it, I recommend trying it. But I've seen a lot of people who use this foundation and then say they hate it. I see them buffing it into the skin. So this, with this brush, this is how I see them applying it. When I looked at the instructions for this foundation on their website, it says to swipe it on using stroking motions like this. If you're having issues with this foundation, if it's not applying nicely on you, if you're finding it's looking very heavy and textured and cakey, stop trying to buff and try swiping motions and see if that helps at all. I hopefully that might help you get a bit of a better use out of it if you've already purchased this one. So next here we have the Dior Backstage foundation that was a huge fave of mine all throughout 2018. I've gone through a whole bottle of this. This is, in fact, I've gone through 2 whole bottles of this. This is my 3rd bottle and this is in my winter shade. So I haven't used this for a very long time because I ran out of it. I ran out of my summer shade of this really early on in the year. So I haven't used this for months and months because I only have it in my winter shade. So I've kind of forgotten how I feel about this. I know I was obsessed with it last year. It was my absolute favourite. I feel like probably the ones I've discovered more recently I prefer to this one. It's a little matter than I guess my ultimate favourites, but it is a more natural matte, a more luminous matte. So yeah, I do like that. I do like it's so versatile. You can go from sheer to pretty much full coverage just about, and you do get a lot of foundation in here, 50 mils in this one. I talked about this foundation in my value for money video because you do get a lot for your money, so I think that's fantastic. It's gorgeous on the skin, very natural, very easy to work with, got a lot going for it. Double wear, I always like to have a bottle of this because it does serve a purpose, as in it is completely bulletproof, completely life proof. Whatever kind of day ever happens to you, it is not going to move, it is not going to smudge from your face, it's not going to go on anyone's clothes, it is completely impenetrable. but it is incredibly flat matte on me, and I hate that. I just feel like it looks so dead flat on my skin. So yeah, it's just really not the foundation for me. If you're oilier, I know that people, it is their holy grail, their everything, but it is just not for me as far as my preference is. The fully other end of the scale is the Charlotte Tilbury Light Wonder. I really hardly use this anymore. I do like it. I did like it for a very long time as far as it being a no makeup foundation, but I definitely have found some that are kind of in that box, like the Pat McGrath, like some of the others I'm going to talk about in a second, that I prefer over this one, so I don't think I would repurchase this one. These little samples are the Urban Decay Stay Naked foundation. There again, I really liked it as a matte foundation, but again, too matte for me, and I obviously haven't purchased the full size and even used up my samples because it is just too matte for my preference, but a really beautiful full coverage matte if that is your bag. The Clinique Even Better Glow, I love this foundation. I think it's a really nice, natural, light foundation. Again, it's definitely been beaten out of my kind of top few foundations since Foundation Geddon. There's definitely foundations I've found this year that I prefer to this one, so I really very rarely reach for this one anymore. This one I really loved when the first few times I tried it. It's very hard to get in the UK, and the shades I kind of struggled with a little bit, but definitely has been now gazumped. This is, you know, full coverage dewy foundation. It's a little sticky of a consistency and it has quite a lot of scent in there, but again, if I was to line that up against like the Fenty, the Shiseido, the Anastasia, then this would come, you know, after all of those. I definitely don't like this one as much, sorry, as I do those other foundations, so for that reason it just very rarely ever gets used. Now these are the Urban Decay Naked Skin One and Done. These always tend to come with me when I go on holiday, but that is the only time I ever use them, and really I would never repurchase these. I liked them. They're nice foundations. They're actually called Complexion Perfectors. They've got a decent amount of SPF in there, and like I said, they're really nice and hydrating, easy to travel with for holiday and things like that. But yeah, I think they're just not as, they don't wear particularly well. They're not sort of transfer proof or anything like that. The finish is just okay. I definitely have other you know, tinted moisturizers that I prefer to these, so once these are gone, they'll definitely leave my drawer. Now these three are my favorite tinted moisturizer type of products. Obviously they are all quite different. The It Cosmetics is called a CC cream, but is very much got the coverage of foundation. It's a very full coverage foundation, very thick. I do really like it in the summer, but I really would only use it then for that purpose because of the really high SPF, and it's very hydrating, and all of that good stuff. Got all the extra skincare products in there, but yeah, I don't love it over my regular foundations. These two I absolutely love, and these are kind of the regular ones I use as far as tinted moisturizers. They're very similar. I would say that probably the Lancome has a hair more coverage and is maybe a hair more dewy as well. The Laura Mercier has a little bit more SPF in it, but that doesn't really matter a huge amount to me because, you know, between 23 and 30, neither is going to give me all of the SPF that I want. So I would always use an SPF as well, you know, if we were in the summer. They're both beautiful, very natural on the skin, very lovely finishes, very glowy. The Lancome is a little more glowy on me than the Laura Mercier. Both wear nicely. This Lancome Skin Feels Good shade range is awful in the UK, really awful. So I have to use a really dark shade and then either lighten it up or just work with it. But the Laura Mercier has a really nice shade range, and really great tones for me. So for that reason, this is probably my favourite as far as tinted moisturisers go that I have found. I really like that one. So there you have it. Those are all the foundations I currently have in my rotation, in my situation, in my drawer, in my life. I'd love to know what you guys think, whether you've tried these foundations, what your foundation collection is looking like, what your favourites are out of the ones that I have, and I will see you in the next video. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye.